This video is brought to you by Skillshare. For more than a decade, pharmaceutical company Novo Nordisk, sometimes known as Novo, has been one of Denmark's biggest companies. In the past, Novo mainly produced diabetes drugs and did pretty well out of it. But in the last year or so, its numbers have skyrocketed, thanks to the phenomenal success of two new drugs best known for their weight loss effects, Ozempic and Wegovy. Today, Novo is Europe's most valuable company, and its unprecedented sales single-handedly saved Denmark from a recession last year. In fact, Novo is so big that its market capitalization, i.e. the total dollar value of all its shares, is now greater than Denmark's entire GDP. So in this video, we're going to have a look at these new drugs, how they've turned Novo into a European behemoth, and why, while this might sound good, it's actually a serious risk for the Danish economy. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. So let's start with a bit of history. Pharma companies have been trying to develop weight loss drugs for years, especially since US obesity rates started rising in the 70s. But the history of weight loss drugs is littered with terrifying failures. The first commercially successful weight loss drug was probably dinitrofenol, which became popular in the mid-30s, only to be banned a few years later when scientists realized it could cause blindness and occasionally death. Next came amphetamines, which, well, we shouldn't really need to explain why they're no longer considered commercially appropriate.
This is pure glass. You're a goddamn artist.
And since then, a series of other drugs have all claimed to be the long-awaited miracle cure for obesity, only to be promptly banned for health reasons. Semaglutide, the active ingredient in both Wegovy and Ozempic, is the latest drug to claim this title, but this time it looks like it might be the real deal. Semaglutide's weight loss properties were actually discovered by accident, and it was originally developed to improve blood sugar regulation in diabetics. For context, when we eat, sugar enters the bloodstream. Most people react to this blood sugar by producing insulin, which takes sugar out of the bloodstream and into the rest of the body. Diabetics don't produce any or enough insulin, which is why they have to regularly inject themselves with insulin to stabilize their blood sugar levels. Semaglutide does two things: stimulates insulin production in the pancreas and reduces the rate at which liver releases sugar into the bloodstream. Both of these mechanisms help stabilize blood sugar levels, but because reducing the rate at which the liver processes sugar essentially slows digestion, semaglutide also significantly aids weight loss. This was discovered in 2021, when a study found that, over the course of about a year, overweight people taking semaglutide lost on average an astonishing 17% of their body weight. While patients regained most of their weight after coming off the drug, and side effects include nausea, vomiting, and possibly an increased risk of thyroid tumours, these impressive results created a massive demand for both of Novo's semaglutide-based drugs, Ozempic and Wegovy. Ozempic has actually been used to treat type 2 diabetes since 2017, but Wegovy, which has a higher concentration of semaglutide and is specifically marketed for weight loss, was only licensed in 2021. Unsurprisingly, this has been great for Novo's bottom line, not least because they have a US patent for semaglutide derivatives. From a financial perspective, these drugs are ideal. In their current form, they have to be taken indefinitely to maintain their efficacy, and they're very expensive. While it's significantly cheaper in Europe, in America, Novo's main market, Wegovy costs about $1,300 a month, and Ozempic costs around $900 a month. This means that a single customer has to spend something like $10,000 to $15,000 a year, and customers could end up staying on the drug for many decades. Ozempic and Wegovy sales have pushed Novo's annual revenue up by 50% in the past couple of years, going from about $20 billion in 2020 to $30 billion today. And it's currently forecast to jump another 35% or so this year, up to about $40 billion. These already incredible numbers are only going to improve as demand for these drugs increase in the coming years. This is both because obesity rates are expected to rise, but also because Novo still has loads of markets to expand into. As things stand, the vast majority of Novo's sales come from the US, and while it's been licensed by Denmark and Norway, it's not provided through the state health system in either country yet. Given its success in the US, chances are that it'll soon be licensed in other countries, and possibly even introduced into public health services as a way of combating an obesity epidemic that's putting immense strain on national health systems. Even in America, Novo still has space to expand. At the moment, relatively few insurance policies include Wegovy, covering just 40 million or so Americans out of a potential customer market of over 300 million. Now, in many ways, this is great news for Denmark. While most of Novo's revenue comes as a result of the drug maker's production overseas, Novo employs around 21,000 Danes and accounts for about 1% of all tax revenues last year. Novo even saved the Danish economy from a recession. Headline figures suggest that Denmark grew by 1.7% in the first half of this year. But if you strip out the pharmaceutical sector, which is now dominated by Novo, the Danish economy actually shrank by 0.3%. Nonetheless, Novo's size actually presents a really significant risk for the Danish economy. Novo's market capitalization has surged from about $100 billion in 2020 to a high of $461 billion earlier this month, bigger than Denmark's entire GDP, and now accounts for over 50% of the main Danish stock index. If Novo were to collapse in some way, Novo's decline could bring down the entire Danish economy. This might sound implausible or melodramatic, but this is what happened with Nokia and Finland. At its peak, Nokia's market capitalization was nearly twice Finland's GDP, and the company accounted for 4% of all Finnish economic activity. Nokia's tech even accounted for 20% of all Finnish exports at one point, pushing Finland's current account surplus to nearly 7% of GDP. Finland quickly became a sort of mini-economic miracle, with GDP per capita rising by 55% from 1995 to 2007, basically the highest in the developed world. However, when Nokia collapsed after the release of the iPhone in 2007, it took Finland with it. Exports fell by 50%, pushing Finland's current account into deficit, and its economy stagnated. Any Finns who'd invested in the Nokia-dominated Finnish stock market lost their savings, reducing consumer confidence and aggregate demand. While the effects were compounded by the financial crisis, Finland's economy has performed way worse than its peers, and today Finland's GDP per capita is actually lower than it was in 2008. So you get the idea. Novo is becoming Denmark's Nokia, and while that might make Denmark the economic envy of Europe for a while, it should be wary of ending up like Finland. A few weeks ago, we told you that we were making a physical newspaper, but it turns out that designing a newspaper isn't all that easy. So we headed to Skillshare to take their course on the topic. Unlike when Jack tried to learn InDesign for another never-released project a few years ago, this time he was guided through the process quickly and efficiently. And this time the project will actually see the light of day thanks to Skillshare's incredibly easy-to-follow guides. In fact, here's an exclusive little preview of what we've been working on. It's not just that either. You likely already knew Skillshare for classes and things like photography, editing and illustration. But did you know that Skillshare also has hundreds of career-focused classes too? That's courses on everything from how to start a business to maximizing your workflow or how to grow in e-commerce. Another course that Jack's taking to help him with the newspaper. And if you use our link, then you can get access to all of that for free. That's right, the first 500 people to use our link will get access to one of Skillshare's best offers. 30 days free and 40% off your first year of Skillshare membership. That's the best Skillshare offer we've ever had, so make sure you click our link in the description. Thanks for your support, and to Skillshare for sponsoring this video.